Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have everyone here. We've got a great discussion plan today. We have with us Tim Freundlich, the president of Impact Assets, Julie Mentor, who is the principal at New Media Ventures, and we also have with us Rick Moss, who is the managing director and founder of Better Ventures. We're talking impact investing today. Real money at stake here, so stick around. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Your Mark on the World, bringing you another change maker with champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Well, Tim, Julie, Rick, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. I think it's going to be a great discussion. Tim, how long have you been at Impact Assets now?
Well, since the beginning, which was spun out of Calvert Foundation in 2010, 2011, so it's been about 6 years.
Well, Calvert and Impact Assets are really two of my favorite vehicles because you are making, at both institutions, impact investing more accessible to more people. I think that's a key part of your mission. So you've got a great history having connected there. Julie, how long have you been with New Media Ventures?
2.5 years.
And what were you doing before then?
I was a strategy consultant. So I have a business degree and was trying to help companies reduce their environmental, social impact as a consultant, and realized that while there's a lot of stuff that business can do, there's a lot of things that they can't. And so I got really interested in other levers of change, like the things that we hear and believe through media, the rules that exist in the world through politics, and advocacy. So that's what brought me to New Media Ventures, kind of combining a lot of my interests.
Fantastic. Rick, what led you to form Better Ventures?
Yeah, we started about 7 years ago in 2010, and I came from the technology world where I led corporate development in software for Sun Microsystems, acquiring companies and doing venture investments, etc. And that company was acquired by Oracle. And I joined Oracle briefly and then decided that was my time to go pursue my big dream of founding an impact fund. And that's how Better Ventures got started.
Fantastic. Now, Tim, how do you collaborate with Julie and Rick?
Well, we started something called a donor advised fund, actually back when I was at Calvert Foundation, sort of a community foundation at a global level. So much like a Fidelity charitable or a Schwab charitable that people may have run across, people having kind of micro philanthropic endowments. So instead of setting up a foundation like Mr. Gates, you can actually join our platform and access a wide range of investments. In our case, it's all about impact investing, not just philanthropy. And that's kind of our reason to exist. We're built from the ground up, kind of by and for impact investors. And that's where Rick and Julie come in different ways. We've been really lucky to collaborate with both their groups in terms of allowing a broad range of investors and philanthropists to make real investments in social change strategies, utilizing both of their facilities in different ways, which hopefully we can get into, but I don't want to hog the spotlight too much.
So how long have you been working together, Rick, you and Julie and Tim?
Well, we work in terms of our relationship with each of them, probably 5-ish years, and we set out to raise our Fund 2 approximately 5 years ago, and we, somewhere in the middle of that, paired up with Impact Assets as a sort of important fundraising vehicle for that fund, and that's how our relationship started to deepen there significantly, and we worked really closely together, and they were instrumental in helping us raise our fund and get some good values-aligned investors into it.
Fantastic. Now, what about you, Julie? How did you connect with Impact Assets, and how have they been a partner to you?
Yeah. So New Media Ventures was initially just a network of angel investors and angel grant makers. So we fund for-profit mission-driven startups, but also nonprofit startups. And what we found is the model of just relying on that network was really limited when it came to earlier stage companies and organizations that we thought had a huge potential. And so that led us to create our own fund. And essentially, Impact Assets, we did a lot of shopping around at the time, and they were by far the best potential partner for us. So we established a donor advised fund at Impact Assets and have been kind of experimenting in all sorts of interesting ways in how to use that vehicle for impact investing. So out of our donor advised fund at Impact Assets, we both make investments, essentially what you could think of as the principal, and then we make grants out of there as well. And essentially we raise philanthropic capital from folks who are interested in supporting our mission, and then make investments and grants out of the fund.
What is the scale of your donor advised fund there at Impact Assets, Julie?
Yeah, we've raised $2.6 million into the fund, have invested in, I think we have 9 or 10 active investments now, and made a number of grants out of the fund.
Fantastic.
And let me just jump in there, and because our structure is a little different, our relationship is a little different. It sounds like Julie has a donor advised fund actually at New Media Ventures at Impact Assets. We are essentially one of the investment vehicle or investment choices for people who have a fund on the platform. It's a place where it's a fund choice for them to invest the capital that they put into their donor advised fund. So we have kind of multiple Julies, if you will, who've invested into our fund. One of which is not Julie. You'll be happy to know.
So,
not that we're aware of.
So, Julie, do you also raise money on the platform, or are you only investing and donating through it?
That's right. We're investing and donating because the capital that we raise is 501c3 capital. So people get a tax deduction from their investment, and it goes into the fund that we then manage. One of the things that's valuable of working with Impact Assets is they have a great diligence capacity. So in addition to the diligence that we do for the investments, they also do background checks and all that for these investments that we want to make sure that it's all really high quality companies.
Fantastic. Now, Tim, give us a sense of your philosophy and how you see the role of Impact Assets in the world.
Well, you hit on one of the themes already, which is that of democratization, making really sophisticated, diversified asset allocations and options available to a much wider range of folks. So back to that Gates analogy, you don't have to have hundreds of millions, much less billions of dollars to get access to an incredible range of private debt and equity, both funds like Rick's or individual deals like New Media Ventures and what Julie's working with. But you can actually do that with a $50,000 personal philanthropy account, or $100,000, or maybe $1 million. And we do see that. We see in some cases, in Better Ventures example, we opened it up at a $25,000 minimum for individual kind of a la carte purchases by the donor advised funds, of which we have probably 850. The New Media Ventures Donor Advised Fund is a good sized one of those, but there are some larger and many smaller, and people can nibble and choose the offerings like Better Ventures, which is kind of technology for good, if you will, relatively early stage, diversified private equity fund, which we have great hopes for, Rick. I think it's going quite well from what I've seen.
It is indeed.
You guys are off and running, right? But that allows people, a dozen or 24 of our clients where that really resonates to directly move in. And so to that democratization, but then also to put that into an actual asset allocation, which we did as part of a private equity component in our long-term diversified portfolio. We literally have hundreds of accounts who might have not $25,000, but maybe $25 rolled up into our one Uber investment, not Uber, our macro investment into Better Ventures. And so that democratization and the ability for us to professionally diligence stuff and really put up exceptional quality managers and make them accessible to people at bite sizes. That's what gets me kind of up in the morning is making that connection of the sort, a much more democratically sourced set of capital to a demystified and and well-curated set of opportunities out there in the field, like Better Ventures, and to make that same platform available for the stakeholders that Julie's group, New Media Ventures, is also organizing in an interesting model that's a little different, where they're really almost a synthetic philanthropy and venture product or pool that they're welcoming people into.
Now, Tim, you came from Calvert, so the comparison there is too obvious for me to miss. But at Calvert, the democratization of impact investing is extreme. You can participate there with $20. At Impact Assets, it's a little more. Where does at what point can you, what kind of chunk, dollar size money are you looking for someone to show up with before you want to talk to them about being on the platform?
I mean, we have hundreds of accounts in the $5,000 range, to be honest, and are building something that's accessible for that level to 25 to 50,000. I think the folks who are sort of using the most interesting part of our capabilities tend to be a little larger, more in the 200 to 2 million, 200,000 to $2 million range. But again, they're punching like a Gates Foundation can, in terms of real diversified access to multiple private debt and multiple private equity deals and funds and asset allocations, even as they're giving away grants. So we're definitely a little upmarket, if you will, from the Calverts of the world.
Right, and let me chime in on that, because our minimum investment in this last fund, it may go up in the next one, was $500,000, and Tim was just saying that the minimum investment to invest in our fund through Impact Assets was $25,000. So as you can imagine, there are lots of people who would like to put $25,000 into a venture fund, and we're small in the scheme of things, and can't really handle the administration and overhead of dealing with lots and lots and lots of small investors like that. So funds like ours and the bigger ones are really inaccessible to most investors. And by working with Impact Assets, we make ourselves accessible and to them. And then for us, it's also a big advantage because there are lots of people we want to work with who can't write that size of a check. And this enables us to have essentially one investor that one investment from Impact Assets that represents all of those smaller checks combined. And surprisingly, we actually got at least one or maybe more that were at our minimum or above through Impact Assets. So it was quite a successful vehicle.
Now, Rick, what's your investment thesis?
Our basic investment thesis is that mission-driven entrepreneurs outperform. That entrepreneurs who care deeply about the problem they're solving will work harder, stay up later, never give up, and they are just personally committed to making their startup succeed. As we all know, starting a startup is really, really hard, and you hit multiple walls where you are ready to give up and you feel your whole life is unraveling, and it's in those moments that you need to dig deep. And if you're passionate, then you will, and really believe in your cause, then you will work harder. And so we see that, we look for that in our entrepreneurs, and we bet on them, and we bet that they can actually make more money than their peers, but also that they can deliver social impact on a very, very large scale that something like philanthropy can't do, because they can scale to hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars in revenue. And we look for things where every time they make a sale, they make an impact. So the bigger they get, the more good they do.
That's great. Now, Julie, I wonder if you would just take a minute and tell us about your theory of change.
Yeah, happy to. So New Media Ventures was really created to harness technology and innovation to broadly build progressive change. And so we're really interested, in terms of investors out there, we are very political. And so we're interested in how do we essentially bring the levers of power into the hands of more people. And we believe that over time that will, create a more just, environmentally friendly world. And so the three kind of areas of change that we're most interested in is one, media. So how do we harness media to change people's hearts and minds, to help them consider things they might not have otherwise considered, and just hear different kinds of voices. So that's one area. And in that bucket, we funded, Upworthy, which was the fastest growing media company of all time, Blavity more recently, so a number of really fast growing media startups. The second bucket of our investment is around movement building. So who are the folks who are bringing people together to take action? And in this moment of, kind of incredible levels of citizen engagement, people kind of taking action and being mobilized, it's an incredible moment as an investor backing startups, like just a lot of really exciting innovation happening, both in terms of new groups and new kind of, as I said, startup nonprofits. Most well-known probably is, Indivisible right now, or Swing Left, Sister District, a number of these groups that are, helping people take action. And then the tech tools they need to succeed. So it's, what's the better way to fundraise online, for example. And then the third bucket of our work is around civic engagement. And so that is more, in some way you could say nonpartisan work, and really looking at how do we have more people participate in our democracy by voting, be better informed voters. And so we've backed tools like online voter registration tools like vote.org and TurboVote, and a number of data providers for around election information. But all in the service of essentially having more people, have a voice and have impact in the world that we live in.
Great. Now, Tim, you must get entrepreneurs all the time who are coming to you asking for capital, social entrepreneurs. And I don't think that you have a mechanism for investing in them directly.
No, we send them to Rick.
Okay. So
we gladly accept.
Sometimes also to Julie, depending on I'm kidding, but only slightly. Actually, I'm not kidding. We really rely on excellent intermediaries and managers across a wide range of geographies and categories and stage. And generally speaking, when things come to us, unless a client brings them, which happens on a weekly basis, I'm not exaggerating. We did 6 client-driven private equity deals alone at the direct company level just last month. So we're doing 1.5 a week, 1 to 2 a week that are client driven. And so we do those, and sometimes we kind of syndicate those a little bit. We'll also introduce them to, if there's a fund manager we work with, like a Better Ventures, we can redirect them or make an introduction. We don't do that too much because we try to keep the noise levels down, but to the extent that we think there's a good fit, we do that on a periodic basis. But generally we find that fund managers and professional intermediaries are a way that we can amplify. I mean, if you think about it, how could we be good at, it's like it takes everything you've got to get good at one vertical in one geography or one kind of category, and I think, Julie and Rick are great examples of this in a different way. We're doing things across all asset classes, all sectors and geographies. So the only way we can do that is to count on friends in the space who are professional managers and can sleuth these things out. So we've done at this point 55, I think, private debt and equity fund investments, 55. And each one of those is a manager. Each one of those has a whole sphere of expertise and companies that multiply. And we've worked with kind of more informal intermediaries like New Media Ventures that are using our platform. We've done maybe 10 of those kind of relationships. So that's how we kind of multiply our effect. Although that said, again, we're doing a deal or 2 a week directly, and those are more client driven.
Fantastic. Now, Rick, people come to you all the time looking for money, all day, every day. What do you tell the ones that you like that don't fund?
Yeah, well, there are hundreds of startups pitching for every one investor that's going to kind of write a check. So I got into this business thinking I was going to be saying yes and writing checks to amazing companies all the time, and I end up saying no all day. And so you get good at that. And but what we talk about is that, you know, they're different investors for every stage of your growth. And we are a great investor for the pre-seed stage or the seed stage, where you're really just starting out. You have a little bit of a product. It's working at minimum viable product in the marketplace. You have at least two founders, one technical and one business, and you're getting some results that show that you're solving an important problem in the world. And that they can show that quantitatively, that, you know, people are using it, they like it. They don't have to have lots of revenue. They don't have to have amazing rocket ship growth before we talk with them, but they need to have those things. And so I say, this sounds awesome. I encourage you. I'm glad to hear someone is addressing this problem, and we're interested, and keep making progress. And once you are at that stage, we're ready to go. And meanwhile, you know, talk to some groups that do work at your stage, like angel investors and friends and family. And we actually even hold workshops once a month here at our co-working space in Oakland, where we talk entrepreneurs through just for free. You just sign up and come in, and we talk you through the whole fundraising process and how to do it at all the different stages, whether it's with us or somebody else.
Julie, what do you tell those entrepreneurs that come to you that you choose not to fund, but that you like?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, as Rick said, it is a lot of no's, and you know, we always think a lot about the power dynamic in those relationships, where, you know, as an investor, like, I have all the power, yet the entrepreneur is actually the one who's actually making the world a better place. And so we try to be really respectful of entrepreneurs' times and the time they spend, you know, telling us their story and their work. So we always send direct feedback. You know, I'm well known for giving bad news well, or in a way that people can hear. It's like one of a weird expertise I have. And so I will always send feedback to entrepreneurs if they request it. And the feedback really depends on where they're at. Sometimes it's not the right, you know, it's outside of what we focus on. Sometimes it's too early. Sometimes they have a big gap in their business model or go-to-market strategy or on their team. And so we'll help them really figure that piece out. The other thing, I think, I love, Rick, those workshops that you're doing. That's, I didn't know about it. That's really cool. The tack that we've taken kind of to that challenge of helping entrepreneurs navigate, like, who should I be pitching when and what are the different stages, is actually doing more writing. So actually just yesterday we published on our Medium publication a piece on, you know, where do entrepreneurs find capital, and what are kind of creative ways to do that if you don't have a network, a personal network of friends and family that can actually bankroll you, or you don't, because of your background and, you know, who you don't necessarily know or can find angel investors. So what are other ways beyond that you can actually fund? And some people just win a lot of business case competitions. Some people just take another day job and kind of do both at the same time. There's a lot of creative ways that people get off the ground until they get a yes from a larger funder. Great
insights. Tim, you're a big deal in the impact world. Who do you look up to as a role model?
Big and old are two different.
Who do you look up to? Who's your role model?
I think that, I mean, there's this sense of a building wave that's been going on for a few decades, and I just celebrated might be too strong a word. I just marked my 20th anniversary in the sector, or in the space, if you will, from when I came in '97 in June, and it was already going on for a long time, and people like Amy Dominy, who started Dominy Social Investments, and Wayne Silby, who started, along with a whole crew of people, Calvert Investments. I mean, this not to mention, you know, the Quaker tradition and what was going on with the Catholics, a lot of the nuns' retirement funds long before that. So I mean, there's folks like this who we stand on their shoulders, whether or not we think of them as impact investing because maybe they were not in the lexicon or they kind of predate it. That I certainly have a huge amount of, I mean, that was the real Wild West. I remember 20 years ago thinking that it was like watching icebergs melt, the momentum, you know, how slow it was, the uptake years ago. There were people who had already been slugging it out and slogging through it for 20 years when I got there. So folks like that, but at the same time, you know, it's like, you know, the stuff, the entrepreneurs are really where it's at for me. I mean, that's, I think, Julie, you captured that really well. It's, you know, there's a lot of investors I really like, and I think and I think that's great, but it's like every single one of these tenacious, crazy people who are living the dream, you know, eating ramen soup with the extra job while they crowdfund and, you know, whatever their way into some amazing venture, and the ones that have gotten through it and are giving back. You know, folks like Seth Goldman, who started Honest Tea, who's actually a client that we work with, who's paying it forward one new venture at a time and taking board seats and putting everything that he got out of that sale, that iconic sale to Coca-Cola of Honest Tea. He's put, I mean, not every penny, I'm sure, but a lot of it going right back into companies. So I think that, you know, it's the entrepreneurs that are sticking with it year in, year out, and month in, month out, that deserve the most support and the most admiration from my point of view. And it's really hard to pick out from amongst them because, as Rick said, you know, there's hundreds of them every day going at it, and it's pretty amazing the success stories that are building.
Julie, you are doing something I think is very interesting. You have this, not a lot of people are investing in media, period. Not a lot of people take an overtly political approach to it. I wonder if you can identify the personal reasons that motivate you to pursue this.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my background has really, for a long time, been in and motivated and driven by the risk of climate change and how that, you know, is like, we need to manage. I'm terrified for my children, all of that. And as I was doing work with very large corporations, helping them really think about the risk to their company, it was, and being very creative about the business case, there were just times where you couldn't make the business case because at no point does it make sense for a company, in particular in a very competitive environment, to, you know, put a huge tack on themselves for around, you know, kind of carbon emissions, you know, chemicals, social impact, if their competitors aren't going to do it. And I worked in a bunch of pre-competitive collaborations in the apparel industry with the Sustainable Apparel Coalition and a number of different things. And that is important, but that is also not getting us to where we need to go. And so for me, the importance of having an explicit kind of political lens to our work is that a lot of the environment, like the environment that guides business decisions, is the laws of the land. And if we're not thinking about how those laws get shaped, and we're not playing a role then they get shaped by lobbyists and by folks who don't have necessarily our, you know, the broad set of interests at heart. And so I think it's, you know, there's a lot of potential for innovation in that space, in particular because politics has been left to, you know, lobbyists, politicians, professionals, campaigners, and that, you know, it's kind of, until recently, people didn't think they were welcome there or they had a role to play. And so there's, you know, there's a huge set of opportunities for innovation in that space around both how do you make it more efficient, how do you make it more representative, how do you help people run campaigns for little or no money instead of having to spend all of their time raising money from donors. There's just a lot of really both kind of, you know, from a personal mission of why I think it's important, but also from a, you know, investor perspective, I think there's a lot of potential there. And on the piece of media, actually, you know, for a long time, media was like, oh, like, how do you make money in media? And it's still not clear how you make money in media, but there's a lot of, there's kind of a new, you know, if you look at Young Turks just raised $20 million, Gimlet raised a big round of capital, like actually traditional VCs are starting to look at this space. And if you think about the incredible amount of content that is available on the internet today, there's just a lot of potential there. Like people are consuming content, people are doing stuff in that space, and the monetization is still complicated, but there is just a lot of attention, like, you know, human eyeballs being spent with media. And so it's an interesting opportunity there.
Rick, what is your superpower?
I think, in our business, this is a genuine answer because I didn't know it was coming. You need to, it can be competitive. Good startups have their choice of investors, and we find that, in the venture capital world, there are lots of very smart people chasing the best deals. And since our focus is on mission-driven founders and people who feel really deeply and passionately about their mission, we have an ability to kind of connect personally with the founders we work with and basically say it's not only safe for you to say that you really care about doing good in the world and that you're not only about making money, but that we actually we're looking for that, right? And so we have an ability to kind of bond and align with the founders that we're looking for, and succeed in investing, getting to invest in them as a preference over other founders, and also then other investors. And then once we start to work with them, we can build kind of a really special rapport where we can go deep on how are they going to build a big and important company that really does something meaningful that measurably impacts the world on a very large scale, and we're on board with that. And so as they grow bigger and they start to take on other investors who may not be as impact minded, they want us on their board, they want us involved, and they call us all the time to ask for advice because we kind of share these values with them that they might be kind of hiding from other people.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank all three of you for taking the time to be with us. Before we go, I want to ask each of you just to share quickly the best way for people to get in touch with you and to remind us of the, a place where people can learn more, perhaps your website. But Tim, let's start with you.
Yeah, impactassets.org is actually has a great deal of sort of resources on it, and I think there's 15 issue briefs and a whole database of 50 better ventures is out there in the world, fund managers who are doing interesting stuff that's searchable. We put a lot of free stuff out there in addition to all of our information. So I would suggest people go there.
Fantastic. Rick?
For us, it's better.vc. We have a whole page on our approach, on our team, on our pre-seed program, which is the workshops and speaker series and things like that for pre-seed founders. And our Twitter handle is @BetterVentures.
Fantastic. And Julie?
Our website is newmediaventures.org. There's a couple of contact links there. I encourage folks to sign up for our newsletter and send out kind of regular updates on what we're up to and ways for folks to connect with us. And there is also a kind of contact us button there that'll go either to me or to my colleagues. Fantastic.
Well, I want to thank all of you for the time you've invested and wish you every success in financing more and more entrepreneurs who will do more to change the world for good.
Thanks, Devin.
Thank you, Devin.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was recorded via Google Hangouts on Air and is available at youtube.com/Devin Thorpe. Subscribe to this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes by searching for Your Mark on the World. Every weekday, Devin hosts a CEO, celebrity, entrepreneur, or other changemaker here on the Your Mark on the World show to inspire and prepare you to make your mark. Devin is a champion of social good, writing about, advocating for, and advising people who are doing good. He is a Forbes contributor who is a recognized thought leader in social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and crowdfunding. To book Devin as a speaker, visit devinthorpe.com. Learn more about Devin's work at yourmarkontheworld.com.